makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
I can't get enough of Jimmy Dore, and it doesn't help that he's appeared lately on a number of very high profile outlets like The Tucker Carlson Show and most recently Joe Rogan, where he was a guest on July 26th. And this might explain why Dore was so quick to disappear from the Medicare for All march on July 24th. I'm sure he was more important. He was more interested in doing his prep work for his appearance on his buddy Joe's show than actually mingling with followers and supporters of Medicare for All during that march. So let's watch this clip, which is the only clip that has so far been published on YouTube. Unfortunately, I have no intention of going to Spotify and listening to the whole thing. So we only have these 13 minutes. But trust me, they tell you all you need to know about what Jimmy Dore really cares about when he goes on these platforms, despite his supposed advocacy of, leftist progressive causes. So enjoy.
The Joe Rogan experience.
So what about, can we talk about ivermectin?
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Straight off the bat, a treatment which is incredibly controversial, is now the source of every single conspiracy theory and grift that you see on the right and also among sectors of the left. I just want to make it absolutely clear, there is no evidence that it actually works. Okay, let's just get that clear. There are ongoing trials because there are suspicions that it might work. There's been some studies, like in vitro studies, that suggest that it might have some degree of effectiveness. There are trials being undertaken right now. I think there's a big one in the UK. This is all good. We should do as much investigation and research on these type of trials. But let's understand what the conspiracy theory is. The reason that they're so obsessed with this particular drug is because it is a generic drug. It's an anti-parasitic drug that's been available for years. And the conspiracy theory is basically that the government doesn't want to show any evidence that it works because that would cut into the profits of big pharma. That is basically the conspiracy theory. That is why it's also being promoted, not just by the right, but also by the left. The conspiracy fringes of both sides of the ideological spectrum, which both essentially hate big pharma and big government. So that is really in a nutshell what the conspiracy is about.
So I covered it, what they did in Mexico City, and ivermectin seems to be a drug that not only treats it.
So there was a big trial. So this is, maybe I should do a video just on this. There was a trial done in Mexico City where the government distributed various ivermectin kits to hospitals, and it was quite widespread. It was, the number of people who received them were in the thousands, but it was not the only drug that was in that part of the kit. Now, that study has not yet been peer-reviewed. It has not been published in a major scientific journal, and it's been heavily criticized for its methodology. And for example, one of the criticisms was that the control group was, and the control group, which was the people who were not given the drug, was basically taken at a different time during the pandemic than the people who were actually given the treatments. So with COVID, you have situations where the people who were not given the kits this took place at a time when cases were rising much slower than when the people that received the treatment. So it's not really comparable. This really isn't a control group. You're supposed to have a control group in practically identical circumstances. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to administer a drug and you're going to give half of the people a placebo, you want this to be taken under the exact same circumstances to really know if the placebo works or not. So that was, there were a lot of other statistical errors that were pointed out on Twitter. Of course, Jimmy Dore, I'm sure, never covered that at all. So it was a flawed study. To my knowledge, that drug is not being administered as like standard protocol in Mexico. And like I said, this is a study that has not been peer reviewed. It has not been published. And this is a fact. There is not a single study showing that this drug works in people with COVID. If there are eventually studies that show it, I'm all for it. But that is not what the conspiracy theory is about. The conspiracy theory is that the government is actively suppressing information about this drug because they don't want a cheap generic drug to be used as the standard treatment for COVID.
But it will prevent you from getting it.
I think we need studies. We need legitimate studies. And I don't know how that happens, because the problem with this argument, this conversation is, you'll have people saying, I've used this on my patients, like Dr. Pierre Corey, who's been on this podcast. And I 100% believe him and I support him. And I'm not saying that he's not telling the truth. The problem is, I think in order to state something emphatically, like this is what we need to do, this is the best treatment, we need studies, right? This is the only way you find out. And well, who's going to fund these studies?
Who's going to fund a study?
And the problem is, it's a generic drug.
That's it.
See, so here's where like Joe Rogan was sounding quite reasonable and saying like, yeah, we need more studies. We can't just take what one doctor says on the basis of his patients. And then like, who's going to do the studies? The government. I'm telling you, this is pure conspiracy theory. Pure conspiracy theory. This is music to the ears of every, Jimmy Dore fan and every dipshit leftist and every dipshit right-winger who always falls for this, whose mind is just obsessed by anti-establishment and anti-government thinking. This is music to their ears.
No one
it's a
wants
drug
it.
that's been around for 40 years, has a long history of use. And also, there's a difference between using it as a prophylactic, so using it as a preventative measure, which is one of the things that Dr. Pierre Corey talked about on this podcast. I forget where they used this, but there was hundreds of doctors, and then there's a percentage of them that used ivermectin as a prophylactic, and there's a percentage that did not. The percentage that did not, half of the doctors, roughly, or half of the healthcare workers got COVID. The percentage that did use it as a prophylactic, 100% did not get it. Now, I don't know if they got lucky. This is why you need a large study,
Right.
and it's a long-term study. Maybe, I don't know, what was their job different than the people who got it? I don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when I'm a fucking comedian and a cage fighting commentator. When I'm talking about very important issues, I have to hedge my opinions on these things.
I know.
It's tricky.
But in an environment where people aren't allowed to talk or question things, well, for instance, my doctor. So when I got the vaccine, I got the double.
So again, this is the main part of the conspiracy theory. Again, the government is suppressing this. The government is not letting you talk about this. The government is silencing Twitter and YouTube accounts who are discussing this drug. By the way, the reason that I'm saying this drug is precisely because there is some risk that the algorithm will pick the sound of said drug and delete this video or whatever. So this is real. Like, this is real. I don't agree with that scale of repression of discussion. But the fact is that this is a drug like hydroxychloroquine before it that was picked up immediately by, the Trump-based, the conspiracy theorists, and you ended up with an entire ecosystem of this. So it's a very tricky position to take. It lends itself to a lot of misinformation. So I don't agree that discussion on this topic has to be silenced, but I do think that there needs to be, a disclaimer.
And
Which one did you get?
I got the Moderna because I have an underlying health problem. I've talked about it before on the
We have
show.
talked about it.
It's called being full of shit.
Yeah.
And so my doctor, because people are like, why did you trust the government? No, I don't trust the government. You trust Big Pharma? No, I don't trust Big Pharma. I trusted my doctor.
Right.
My doctor.
You mean your doctor who like the people who were given like opioids as painkillers? they're not in cahoots with big pharma. Are you kidding me? In the US, like, holy shit! Like, this is insane. This is insane. How can you big government? And then you're basically dealing with a human being that has massive conflicts of interest in your entirely privatized healthcare system, which is why I think you should take this opportunity to promote Medicare for all, by the way, so it doesn't be a purely privatized healthcare system. But that is somewhat irreconcilable with your idea of hating big government. And see the contradiction. This is why I don't think Jimmy Dore is really that into Medicare for all. He's into the aesthetics of struggle for Medicare for all, but I don't think as an actual policy he gives a damn about it. You know, proof's in the pudding that he supported Tulsi Gabbard rather than Bernie Sanders during the 2020 campaign. And if Medicare for all was that much of an issue for him, he should have supported the guy who was its main vocal advocate for it, not Tulsi Gabbard, who completely flip-flopped on it.
Who saved my life and said that because of your thing, you should get it because we don't know how it's going to affect you and you blah, 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 blah. So I got it. And then, I just, the symptoms you get from it, they never went away for me.
What were your symptoms?
So I had body aches, flu-like fever. I had a joint pain. I had a stiff neck.
Have you tried going in an ice bath for 20 minutes?
Hey, I got the AstraZeneca a couple of weeks ago. I felt like absolute shit. All right? Like, worst that I felt in years. Worse than COVID, because I probably got COVID at a very mild case at the very start. And I can assure you that the vaccine felt worse than COVID. You know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go to an audience of 11 million people and just complain about how bad I felt about the vaccine when I should be essentially trying to convince people to get it, which is what someone like him should do in that position. But he's not going to do that at all.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So how long did it?
I'm still cold. I'm
just warming up now. It's fucking 2 hours in this podcast.
I can tell.
Is how long did it last? How long did your symptoms last?
So on April 17th, I got the second jab, and I just never got better.
Was it immediate? Before after the first jab, did you have side effects?
Yes, but they went away. And then the second jab.
How long did they last after the first shot?
I don't remember, but because
a couple days.
Yeah, it was like maybe a week. I think a week. And then the second time, they just never went away. And I was like, what is going on? Because I would get these waves of exhaustion a couple times a day. And then my producer had the same at the fifth week, I had a stiff neck. He got a stiff neck. My wife got a stiff neck. And we all got the stiff neck on the side where we got the shot. So I got it on this side. They got it on that side. And then I looked it up, and it turns out stiff neck is a thing that people experience from the jab. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. They don't tell you that. And so that's common. I'm like, okay. And then it spread to the whole neck. Okay. Now, my producer and my wife, it went away. Their stiff necks went away. Mine didn't. So anyway, I tweeted about it. I tweeted like, hey, this is just to let everybody know, this is what's happened. This is my reaction to the vaccine.
Yeah.
And because people started to come on me, like call me anti-vax. And I'm like, no, I got the vax.
Right.
I got it. I go, when people have a reaction to an experimental vaccine that is not FDA approved, you're supposed to not suppress the reactions. You're supposed to ask people what the reactions are so we can make the vaccines better.
That's a thing.
So here's the thing. You're in a country where a significant amount of the population is anti-vax. And your primary goal as a society is to get as many people with herd immunity as possible. And herd immunity is achieved through vaccination. Now, what is in your best interest? To promote the virtues of the vaccine rather than the side effects? And I should add, Jimmy Dore, Twitter is not the way that you give feedback to whether it's the FDA or the vaccine maker or whatever about your symptoms. There are places that you can call and describe your symptoms, not Twitter. That's not the outlet. So, again, this is feeding this basic... Look, I just want to be clear. Jimmy Dore is not an anti-vaxxer. Okay? Like, let's just get that straight. What Jimmy Dore is a conspiracy theorist. His primary objective is to make you distrust government. That's his objective. So here he is doing everything that he can to push this idea onto people that government can't be trusted. And on anything. Now, take that to its logical extreme. So, let's say I just take him at his word, and I'm just going to be, well, okay, you know, there might be more side effects to the vaccine than the government is admitting. But I still think the vaccine is useful and I should have it. That is like the most benign reaction that you can have to his statements. The problem is not everyone has those reactions. Many people take it much further, and they will hear what they are listening to here was not the part of, hey, I took the vaccine. No, what they hear is, oh my God, there's side effects. The government is suppressing this, and I shouldn't trust this big government. So I'm not going to take I'm not going to trust the vaccine at all. And I'm going to go on, you know, I'm going to put like all these hashtags of all these conspiracy theories on my Twitter profile and just end up basically ranting about it. That's the kind of person that sadly exists. And that's why he's so dangerous. Because what's dangerous about Jimmy Dore is not the people who just take him at his word. It's the people who take his message. That's what's dangerous about him.
That when Jen Psaki's talking about misinformation online and combating misinformation, she distributed misinformation.
Of course.
Because she said that it's approved by the FDA and their gold standard.
She said that?
She said that.
It is not approved. When you go to get the vaccine,
pull that up. Let's make sure that she said it. I'm 99% positive she said that, because I remember reading that going, you can't say that when you're the White House press secretary, because that's not a true statement. It's approved for emergency use authorization because we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. We're in an emergency.
Yes, but it's not an FDA approved.
Joe, when you go get the jab, they give you a piece of paper, and on it in bold black letters, it says, this is not an FDA approved vaccine.
Right.
And they go, you see that? And I'm like, yeah. They go, you okay with that? Yeah, I guess. My doctor said I'm supposed to be here. And
Did you find it?
Yeah, I found the transcript of it. I didn't find the video.
Well,
okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw the video, but I definitely have read the transcript, and I want this to be accurate because it's a big accusation.
This is what she said here when someone asked about the misinformation.
What is this from? Whitehouse.gov.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know more than just a competition about vaccines, the risk, impact. Okay, here it is. Misleads the public by falsely alleging that mRNA vaccines are untested and thus risky, even though many of them are approved and have gone through the gold standard of the FDA approval process. That's right. That's not true.
So she's saying many of the mRNA vaccines.
Right. There's only two that are mRNA vaccines. That's messenger RNA. That is the Pfizer and the Moderna. That's the ones that we use in America. The Johnson & Johnson it's an adenovirus vaccine. It's different, as is the AstraZeneca, right? The AstraZeneca, I believe, is very similar to the Johnson & Johnson. They're different.
So this is somewhat, again, this is how they catch people into this. So technically speaking, it is correct that the vaccines are not approved by the FDA for like general use. They're approved for emergency use. Now, guess what? We're in an emergency. I mean, this is basically like breaking the law to like save someone. Like, let's say there's a flood, like there's been many floods around here, and someone's drowning, and I decide to steal a wooden plank from a home that's been flooded to save someone who's possibly gonna die. I'm technically stealing someone. I'm stealing private property, but I'm doing it to save someone. Now, clearly, I'm not going to go to jail for doing that. I'm not going to be, I used private property from a different individual for emergency use, right? It's kind of the same thing here, and the complaints that they're having is basically like this, like, oh my God, all these people are stealing private property to save people who are stuck in the middle of a flood. I mean, what? Look, these vaccines are not experimental. They're not untested. Do you know how many people have gotten the vaccines around the world? Over 3 billion doses of vaccines have been administered now around the world. 3 No, yeah, 3 billion. So, does that sound like an untested vaccine to you? No. Is there a single country that has documented like widespread cases of side effects? No. So why is this obsession with the fact that these vaccines are not fully FDA approved? Because they are approved for use in an emergency. It's so irresponsible, like so fucking irresponsible. Like I said, this is it. With Jimmy Dore, what matters is the message, not exactly the words that come out of his mouth. It's the message.
But the point is,
Yeah, the Johnson & Johnson uses the old technology, and the Moderna and Pfizer, they use the ones that were developed by DARPA.
yeah. But the point is, it's like,
There we go
It's not-
again. See how he does this? Like, oh my god, I got a gotcha right here. Oh, it's developed by some, shady government agency. The one that, by the way, gave us the fucking internet. You would be no one, Jimmy Dore, if it wasn't for DARPA. God, these people infuriate me so much. Like, infuriate me. Like, every single minute that I've been in front of this camera doing Jimmy Dore videos is vindicated when I see shit like this.
not FDA approved.
No, because that
You
takes
can't-
a while.
So if she's saying that, right, this is
Isn't that misinformation?
It is.
Seems
is.
like it.
And if it says it when you get the jab, and it says it in bold print, and so your experience, even though you this is your personal experience, and you did get vaccinated, people are so rabid online about
Oh my
this.
God.
It is the most divisive subject I think ever since Trump. It really is. It is a nutty, divisive subject, and people just get furious about it, and they're
Because jackasses like you have made it divisive. In other countries, countries where normal people accept the cost-benefit analysis of, hey, I should get a vaccine, I should wear a face mask and not be a dickhead. This isn't an issue. There aren't debates about this. This is a Western thing. This is especially a Western Anglo-Saxon liberal thing. That there is this insanity and paranoia around something so simple as, like, look at Twitter and see people like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald go apeshit over the CDC merely recommending that vaccinated people should still use face masks in certain limited settings. And they're going fucking crazy, thinking like this is the first step towards the Third Reich. I mean, I'm sorry, you don't have this shit elsewhere. And it's propagated by people like Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore. So, this is not, I repeat, this is not normal. This is not how other countries behave.
furious if anybody talks about any negative side effects, even if it's accurate.
I know. So I had tweeted about it just because I wanted to see if other people had this experience.
Right.
And, maybe it's just me.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You don't even respond to people on Twitter. Don't pretend like you just tweet and then disappear. You drop your little bombs and then you disappear. You're not interested in audience engagement. You're not interested in any engagement because no one can call on your show. You don't do debates. You just go and speak with people who, broadly speaking, agree with you.
Maybe it's not. So I got contacted by lots of people, same experience, and I got contacted by a doctor who's leading a bunch of other doctors, a group of doctors, and studying this, and they just submitted a paper on people about the vaccine, right? And so
Here we have this large pyramidal structure, and the witnesses, they can't believe their eyes. It's absolutely shocking.
Okay, I was gonna pause this, but this is like perfect Jimmy Dore ad.
These people don't know each
Oh my
other.
god, this guy's a
We
Mexican.
have preliminary results. It appears to have some anomalies.
Holy shit, this is
that are
amazing.
very interesting.
Suggesting that the
It's a perfect
father
ad for a Jimmy Dore
was
video.
not
Perfect ad.
Homo sapien.
It's almost as if Pope Francis is saying, yeah, there's aliens out there, and oh, by the way, they might not look like us.
He was
Oh
talking
my
about
God.
a non-human species.
We are part
This
of
is
this
perfect.
extraterrestrial family.
Perfect Jimmy Dore. Perfect Jimmy Dore ad. I was not paid by this to show this ad. It was just the best coincidence imaginable. By the way, that guy who appeared sort of halfway through, the guy with the accent, he's Mexican. He's a guy called Jaime Maussan, and he's insane.
He tells me over a DM, this is what we think is happening. This is a spike protein. You're suffering from a spike protein thing and blah, blah, blah. And go to see your doctor, and hopefully your doctor will work with us and give me ivermectin and fluvoxamine I'm taking for inflammation in my brain.
You have inflammation in your brain?
Well, that's because it causes inflammation. So the spike proteins cause inflammation. And so they did some kind of blood test on me, and they said, yeah, you got the thing.
Was it a D-dimer test? Is that what it was?
Joe, you got me. But
Okay.
they said, you have the same, you're right where a
D-dimers for blood clots, not brain inflammation.
long haul COVID person is. Like whatever the markers were, I had the same thing. You're right there. And so I go to my doctor, and I start to explain to my doctor about what this other doctor told me. And my doctor says, oh, I'm treating 5 people just like you. And one of them is a neurosurgeon, and one of them is a nurse. And they were afraid to talk about their symptoms because they were afraid to be ostracized and stigmatized. And I'm like, what a messed up situation we're in this culture,
Right.
when they politicize medicine, where doctors and medical professionals are afraid to talk about their symptoms. That's horrible.
It's also putting people in a position where big pharma is the good guy now.
Yeah.
Which has never happened before.
Never.
And it's
Do you see how literally everything that I just said throughout the course of this video is proven more and more true as every minute passes? Do you see how this is the message? It is just a state of perpetual mistrust of every institution imaginable. And who is the only person that you can trust? Jimmy Dore! Do you know who behaves like this? Do you know what human organization behaves in exactly this same way that makes you mistrust everyone outside the in-group, and you have blind obedience to the leader? It's called cult. And Jimmy Dore's fans behave exactly like cult members. If you don't believe me, just wait till this video is published and see the comments, because this always attracts the nuttiest Jimmy Dore fans, and they behave like cultists, and that is what he wants. That is what he wants. That is what every grifter and every cult leader wants: blind obedience and distrust of everything, which is a shame, because it really is for intellectually lazy people. Because while we should have some degree of distrust for government and authorities of every kind, I think that is, a position that leftists should always have. Power and authority should be legitimized before you are obedient to it. That is a classic, a central tenet of the left. But what he wants is none of that. He doesn't want you to think at all. He doesn't want you to have nuance. He doesn't want you to, have disclaimers on anything. He just just distrust government at all. So again, how on earth can he reliably promote something like Medicare for all, which basically involves, almost a wholesale nationalization of the healthcare industry? That is, big government is going to be administrating your Medicare for all. How do you expect people to support a policy like that when basically you're making your entire career out of mistrusting government? And you see this in like all the other dipshits and misfits who were part of the Medicare for all march. A lot of them, like Fiorella Isabel, are against big government, and they've made utter fools of themselves on Twitter, saying that like, oh, I don't support big government, I do support Medicare for all. And people are like, well, that's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it? It's like, no, it's not, because in direct democracy, people can vote on just complete word salad. This is the sign of someone who just really hasn't thought things through, that they're just in it for the aesthetics of struggle, which is a point that I'm repeatedly making. That this is what they like. They like the aesthetics of struggle. They don't like the actual policies. They are not real leftists. They just like the aesthetics of the left.
especially the exact same companies that people were openly criticizing in the past and pointing out lawsuits that they've lost for hiding information about test results, about things that have happened during studies. And these same people are now ignoring any possible side effects.
It's nuts. So, I mean, how do we make it better? How do we...
By the way, if he mentioned that some of his doctor's patients who also had the same symptoms were also doctors, do you know what doctors can do? They can make studies. You know? And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of studies being done on the side effects of vaccines. You know, nothing's stopping them from doing it. What Jimmy Dore basically is complaining about is that they're afraid to go on Twitter, because clearly Twitter is a superior platform for medical ideas than a peer-reviewed journal.
We know maybe some people, I mean, that suppression of data is not the way you improve a vaccine. The suppression of people's symptoms and data, that is not, and in anything, it's not how it works. No. But that's how they want it to work because of Trump.
Twitter is not data, you dumbass. Seriously, what the fuck? Like I said, these are doctors who could do studies on this. Ranting about it in Twitter is not how ideas are spread.
Because if you say, it's just crazy.
It is crazy.
Even that hydrochloroquine, right? That
hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine that Trump was touting, and they were like, he's nuts because he's touting it. I didn't know anything about it. But that...
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Dude, it doesn't work.
And all of a sudden studies came out that say...
What studies? What fucking studies?
No, that actually has been helping. So now we have contradicting studies, right? It was a Newsweek. I wasn't making it. I didn't pull it out of some crazy thing. It's establishment mainstream news thing. I'm pretty sure it was Newsweek.
Newsweek is not a peer-reviewed journal. Just, you know.
And I tweeted it out and I said, hey, can we stop? Now can we stop politicizing medical science? Can we get back to just doing medical science again and asking questions?
Let's do medical science. And my proof is Newsweek, which was probably an op-ed. Holy shit. This guy is... Honestly, who can think a guy like this is the best medium to speak truth to power? Like, how fucking stupid can you be? It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
How much damage did Trump do on the one conversation he had? Maybe do something like cleaning, something with you.
So much damage.
You do
put
like
bleach right in the.
It's so light. Much damage. You can kill it with light. It's gonna be a miracle like that.
They're doing the exact same thing with, you know, less extreme language. Because Trump was so much of a clown that obviously only his more batshit supporters took him seriously with like the bleach. But what they're saying is in a language that is more relatable to more people. Very stupid people, I might add. But it is more relatable.
One thing where people are like, what the fuck is, because he was riffing.
Yes.
He was clearly riffing.
Clearly
He didn't prepare for this. He probably just got done eating a fucking double cheeseburger. And he's like, he's, you know, because.
He's a salesman. He's just a big.
But because he's so divisive, like everyone is still, it's almost like, do you know, like if you got in a fight with someone, like maybe your neighbor, and then you got in your car and there was a road incident, and you're like, get the fuck out of here. You're already so ramped up.
Yeah.
Because of the fight you got in with your neighbor.
Yeah.
This is what the whole country's like.
That's a great analogy.
That's what it's like. It's like the whole country just got in a fight with the neighbor. Like he's putting his trash can on your lawn.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you fuck. Keep him on your own side, you piece of shit. And then you're in your car. Fuck! And this is like the whole country is like at 8. Out the door in their car, already at 8, on a scale 1 to 10. They're already ready to go. And so whether it's the vaccine or whether it's the border wall or whether it's kids in cages or what the fuck, whatever it is, everybody's so goddamn angry and ready to go. And then you...
I think people should be angry about kids in cages and a border wall. I don't know about you. As for the vaccine, I do think that we should trust science. Not Joe Rogan and not Jimmy Dore. And not just trust science. Trust reality now, because this isn't December where only a handful of people have gotten the shots. Like I said, over 3.5 billion doses of vaccines have been administered now. This is not an experimental vaccine. It's not an untested vaccine. We know it works. Look at the data on the UK, for example, which recently, cases have gone down, by the way, very strangely. But cases shot up. But hospitalizations and deaths didn't. At least not to the degree that cases did. They work.
with the economic crisis that a giant percentage of the country just went through over the past year, and then losing loved ones to this fucking disease and all this chaos and and so many people who have never experienced like high levels of adversity, and all of a sudden they're confronted with it. If you've played it safe your whole life, you've really never done anything risky, never taken any chances, you've had a regular life with a regular job, you play it safe, and then all of a sudden now you're fucked and you're confronted with a perhaps deadly disease that might take you out, and you got all these other problems in the world, and everybody's like, and they don't have the coping skills. They don't have the ability to handle these things, and that's where we find ourselves as a country right now. And it's weird because then you have that with the echo chamber aspect of.
By the way, you know what would help for people to not be that stressed out over a pandemic? Maybe if they knew that they had a healthcare system that they wouldn't go bankrupt in. Something like, I don't know, Medicare for all, which at no point in this discussion Jimmy Dore has mentioned. Funny, isn't it?
Social media, where everybody's just looking for positive reinforcement of their own ideas and confirmation bias. It's wild. Catch new episodes of the.
Whoa. So, I don't know. I don't have much to add aside from what I already said. Like I said, the problem with Jimmy Dore is his message. It is like a Trojan horse of conspiracy theory and mistrust of every form of authority, even when that authority does have legitimacy. And he does it with the sole intention of making you think that he's the only person that you can trust. And that is what cult leaders do. That is how a cult behaves. If you don't believe me, Google the psychology of cult members. And there is no shortage of actual studies that have shown this kind of totalizing ideology that they push, which is consistent with pretty much everything that Jimmy Dore believes in. Basically, you agree 100% with him, however batshit insane his ideas are, or you're a shit-lib CIA plant, corporate sellout, or whatnot. That is the Jimmy Dore mindset. So yeah, I find his videos so funny, but really it is worrying how popular he is becoming and how many people are just orbiting around his ecosystem of grift and consumer. He's basically pushing like a leftist QAnon movement. That's kind of what he's doing. On that note, how hilarious was that ad, by the way? That was completely unscripted, completely unplanned. If it had been any other ad, I probably would have remade that section of the video, but it was so perfect. And yeah, the guy who appeared there, the guy with the gray hair, speaking with an accent, is actually a Mexican conspiracy theorist called Jaime Maussan. He was very famous for his UFO. He had a show about UFOs and other things like that. And he also got like pranked a couple of years ago by people who were, trying to prank these conspiracy theorists. And it's quite famous. You should just Google him. Jaime Maussan, Maussan. Really funny. Maybe I'll do a video on him. But yeah, completely unplanned, but I'm glad it happened. So, thanks for watching. As always, please like, please share. More importantly, please subscribe. This is the first video, by the way, after hitting 300 subscribers, which I think is amazing after less than 3 months. So, yeah, let's keep it going. Thanks.